On today's episode of Exploring Politics, we bring you a very interesting panel discussing the issues with immigration crackdowns, Hegseth's drama continues, and RFK's tumultuous management of the HHS. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Exploring Politics. I'm your host, Peter Rapp, and today we have a good panel with us. We have Giovanni Pina, who is going to be going into Hegseth's drama, and Des, you are going to be discussing RFK's HHS management. But would you like to introduce yourselves first, and then we'll go into the issues?
I'll start, Joe. You go down. Hello, how are you doing, everyone? My name is Deslin Long. I'm a sophomore political science and history major here at LaSalle University.
And Gio?
Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanni. I am a freshman history and political science major at LaSalle.
All right. Thank you very much for introducing yourselves. So first, we're going to go into the issue with immigration crackdowns. Now, the issue, as I've said, is quite broad because there are a number of cases within it. There's the, at this point, long drama with the Abrego Garcia case, a man who was here on a green card and was accidentally deported to El Salvador by ICE, and ICE is now unable to get him back. There is multiple reports of American citizens being threatened with deportation, including registered American deportation lawyer received an email about her pending deportation, which I imagine was quite confusing and scary at the time, and the violation of legal rights to due process that are occurring with the process of detention. So I can go more into background info if you guys would like, but do you have any thoughts just on the general issue at the moment?
Would you like me to start? Sure. I mean, I just think this goes to show that the Trump administration, to me, it screams that they have no idea what they're doing when they are trying to find these people. I mean, how do you deport, American citizens, whether they're here on green card or not? How do you deport these people by accident and then you're not able to bring them back? I mean, I just recently saw a story from some news channel where this man was an American citizen. He was showing them his IDs, showing them that he was a legal resident of the United States, and they were still trying to deport him. And so the man went straight to the news and went straight to the media and the news to tell them about his case that was going on. So to me, it's like they said they were going to go after the criminal illegal immigrants. Most of these people that they've been arresting, I have not heard any case of them being involved with any criminal gang activity besides what Fox News would say about wearing a Chicago Bulls hat. So I think it just screams that the Trump administration has no idea on who is here legally, who is here illegally, and also in terms of whether they can stay here or whether they cannot stay here. They're just doing it by random.
Well, I think a lot of people here are forgetting the scale of the issue, especially. There are, I think, dozens of millions of people that have come into the country illegally in the past couple decades. And obviously, if the administration says that they want to tackle this issue on a large scale, there are going to be a few slip-ups. Obviously, any issue of this scale isn't going to be perfectly carried out. There's no way to properly administer such a massive scale thing, especially if you're saying you want to deport hundreds of thousands or millions of people you claim are here illegally. And obviously, I think while it's a terrible thing that there can be slip-ups, I think that giving it so much focus and saying this is something that is surprising, out of the norm, or wouldn't happen any other way, or if any other administration tried to tackle it in the same way, I think just kind of goes on to the fact that we're looking more at who's doing it and not at what is happening specifically.
I think that I don't think that's entirely true. I think that there is a way to handle an issue like this without having all of these slip-ups, without having American citizens detained, arrested, threatened with deportation, especially lawyers, deportation lawyers. Apparently the reason why that ICE gave was it was an accident. We were just sending out all these emails to people and we accidentally included an American lawyer. But these accidents should not be occurring. You should not be served legal documents about your deportation if you were born and raised here. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think that the reason why we are seeing so many slip-ups with this is because it's not because this just comes with trying to take on such a task. It comes with trying to take on such a task in a hasty and overbearing manner. ICE is just being fully empowered to detain people. I saw recently there is a there was groundbreaking find in cancer research. However, the person who developed the software that would break it down and tell us more information about it is currently detained by ICE to be deported, and she has been for, I think, 30 days or so. And it's just kind of ridiculous to me that we have people who are being detained and their deportation is pending, but we don't know when, like they don't know when they'll be deported. Their family doesn't know where they are. ICE recently lost a detainee. They were detained and then they were not on the list of people sent to El Salvador, and their family is asking about them, and ICE has no idea where this person is. So I think it's kind of a sign of hasty mismanagement. I don't think it's a thing of it just coming with the territory.
And going back to what Peter said about hasty mismanagement, I mean, during the 8 years of the Obama administration, 2 million illegal immigrants were deported. A lot of people do not know that, but Barack Obama deported the most amount of illegal immigrants during his administration. Notice how I said that happened over a period of 8 years. During that time, as far as I can recall, or as far as I know, there were no slip-ups. No American citizens were accidentally sent back to their home countries that they were being sent to. It was all done in an organized and processed manner. So going back to what Peter said, this can be done. It's just that it's being done too fast. You can't do something like this in what month 3 almost now? This is President Trump's 3rd month in office. You can't do something of this scale in such a short amount of time. This is something that takes time and takes energy and is a long process.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about past administrations, I want to point to the fact that there have been abuses of human rights under the Obama administration. The whole idea of putting people in cages and waiting for detainment or deportation was happening under the Obama administration, but we only saw a focus on that and bad backlash over that when it was happening under the Trump administration, which is why I go back to what I was saying before, that I feel that a lot of this is stemming from party politics and not from actual concern.
I think that the mainstream media putting cameras on this issue, I don't think you're entirely wrong. I think that yes, under the Obama administration, there was not a huge focus on the human rights abuses. However, the thing is, those people still had due process. They were being detained and they were being given trial. They were being given court hearings. With this, that's being thrown out the window, and I think that's why we're seeing so many mistakes. Because without due process, there's no check on these mistakes. These mistakes, they happen by ICE making a mistake, and then they just run with it. The Abrego Garcia case, he would not have been sent back to El Salvador had it even went in front of a judge, because there was a court order that do not, under any circumstances, deport this man back to El Salvador specifically, because that's where he fled from, because the gangs threatened him. So I think that this just comes with the removal of due process, and yes, the media is choosing to focus on it more now than they did with Obama, but I think it's more than just party lines, because under the Obama administration, there were the tensions in the cages, but there was not this gross violation of due process, which is an American right.
I think it's also important to focus on why the issue is that there is an administration pushing for removal or pushing back on due process. And you have to look at the situation is fundamentally way worse now than it was under the example you gave, the Obama administration. There are millions more people in the United States now illegally than there were then. And the case has also, with the last administration, gotten much worse with how lax I feel like immigration policing was under the Biden administration. And I think it's objective to say that it is worse now.
I think if you look at the data, it's about the same. I think that some sides of the media try to play it up, but I think really the issue is the same as it has been for the past 10 years. Unfortunately, though, we have heard all of our opinions about this. We have to move on now. We are out of time for that. Gio, would you like to go into the Hegseth drama in the Pentagon?
Sure thing. So the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was under fire a couple weeks ago for the issue of leaked text under the app Signal, and he's back under fire because whistleblowers who were fired from the Department of Defense, who worked, I believe, under him maybe or in a similar department, are claiming that they were fired for whistleblowing, but there was more leaking of Signal text and more mishandling of evidence, things like his wife being involved in Signal text or military secrets being leaked to people like Elon Musk, who some believe do not deserve to be on that need-to-know basis. And other things, such as that, according to some sources, he wanted to have a makeup studio installed in I believe, the Pentagon, which he denies and is currently under investigation. But what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think Hegseth is and has never been fit for the role of the head of Department of Defense. It doesn't make sense to me. He was an alcoholic writer and reporter and media figure, and now he's been given one of the most important roles in the U.S. government. I don't think it makes much sense. I think that his management of it shows that he is not fit. I think he had multiple people turn on him for good reason. Dan Caldwell, Colin Carroll, and Darren Selnick are all ex-DOD people who have spoken to the media about him and have either departed from their posts on their own terms or been fired. The reports of the makeup studio, there are pictures. There are reports he spent thousands of dollars on it, which I think is a ridiculous way to spend money, especially in the Pentagon, which already spends so much. And I think that people like Elon Musk have no need for need-to-know basis items such as U.S. military intelligence. We don't inform the Supreme Court of our military secrets, even though there might be a reason. There's no reason Doge should be on a need-to-know basis about the military.
Well, I think it's also the matter. You're saying the Supreme Court, but you need to keep in mind also Musk is part of the same branch that of government that Hegseth is under, and I think that if you're talking about the people who are within the president's cabinet and are appointees to agencies, I think that there can sometimes be overlapping information. Whether or not the information specifically that was shared was relevant to him, I think is another topic of debate. But you need to look at why he's doing these things. And again, with Hegseth talking about his credibility for his position, he is also a veteran. He served in the military for multiple years.
That is true, but
he, I think, we haven't had enough time to see how qualified he is. But I think that while there have been slip-ups, everyone obviously has their worst moments and their better moments, but I think that he has had quite a few better moments as well, and I think that we need to give him more time in seeing how he performs.
I would like to say that in regards to the whole Elon Musk thing, last I checked, Elon Musk was chosen to be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah. I would argue that the Department of Defense is probably the most efficient branch of the United States government in terms of all the different things that we have in terms of weapons and people that are working under there. So I don't understand why it's essential for Elon Musk to know about war plans in Yemen, given his position. But I digress. Going back to Hegseth's credibility, Hegseth's expertise, I don't think that the fact that he's an alcoholic should knock him down. Me being a history person, of course, like yourself, Gio, look at General Grant. General Grant, perhaps one of our greatest generals in history, right under George Washington, led the nation through the Civil War with President Lincoln. Grant was experienced. Grant has that expertise. It doesn't matter that he was an alcoholic, but I think with Hegseth, even though he is a veteran, you have to look at what it takes to be the Secretary of Defense. I mean, you had Lloyd Austin, you had Jim Mattis. These were men who were 2, 3, 4-star generals, the top of the line. They had years and years and years of service, and they knew what it took to work in the Department of Defense and how to run it. And I think that for Pete Hegseth, I know he was a captain of, I believe, the Army Rangers or something along those lines. I just don't think that's enough. And I think that goes with my previous voiced concerns on other episodes about Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet officials, that they don't meet that level of qualification that is required to run their departments.
Yeah, I just think I've never seen in my lifetime, and granted I'm not that old, but I think even before my lifetime, I don't know if there were this many Department of Defense military intelligence leaks in a 3-month span. I think that this is something unique to Mr. Hegseth, and I think that is something that shows that he is not fit for the position that he is in.
And also the Signal group chats, they were designed to be deleted after, I believe, the course of a week. Stuff like that is necessary for military records for future generations. I mean, I'm currently working on a research project where I have to find out about Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill. It's because of those I'm able to comb through those military documents and know what they were planning during the Battle of Dunkirk, know what they were planning when Roosevelt wanted to send U.S. military weapons.
We're not public at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll eventually get declassified, but
yeah,
they are still necessary and need to be able to be present, if you will, for future generations. They are not supposed to be deleted. That is a violation of national law. That's why presidents have their own libraries, and that's why Donald Trump got into such a big kerfuffle a few years ago when it was found that he was shredding documents and he was hoarding documents in his home in Florida.
Gio, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going back to that, the issue, if we're kind of connecting to breaches of publicity or breaches of, I guess, transparency from different presidencies, I want to go back again to what I've been saying this entire time, that I feel like a lot of these issues are more of politics and identity politics, because there definitely have been other breaches of public information or private information from appointees to cabinets before. And I think a lot of the reason why we're hearing so much about it now is because a majority of news organizations that are reporting on this are very anti-current administration. If they were for the current administration, the same thing was happening, I do not believe that we would be seeing the same amount of public disapproval. It's the same thing that you brought up, the issue with Trump hoarding documents. I remember that at the same time, they also found many documents that were classified in Biden's home that he shouldn't have had. And he got a much, much, much lighter response legally than Trump did. And many people claimed because of his political affiliation at the time.
Well, Biden actually had less documents in his home, and once the federal government came knocking on his door, he actually did return those documents. Trump, with Trump, he was pretty much stalling the FBI from coming in and seizing those documents, and that's why it started turning to such a bigger cycle, because it started going days and days and days and over, leading to when they eventually did raid his home and return those documents. With Biden, once they brought it up to him, he returned it back to the federal government.
Yeah, and I think there have been military intelligence leaks before with whistleblowers, with mistakes made, but it's just I have not ever heard or seen of anything with this frequency. It's so many, like 2 or 3 times in 3 months. That's it seems like a lot to me, but unfortunately we are out of time on this issue. And now we have to move on to Des. Would you like to discuss RFK's HHS?
Yes. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as you know, is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And this week alone, he's been making some interesting decisions. Most recently, he said he would like to start a national registry for people that have autism. This would go and coincide with his views that autism is a preventable disease, and it would basically entail the National Institutes of Health accessing private medical records from both federal and commercial databases to be able to track and document how many people in the United States have autism. And also, in addition to that, he is planning on banning food dyes in various U.S. products. As you know, in other countries, food dyes are already banned, but the U.S. is kind of lagging behind a little bit in that aspect. So I would say for that, if they're harmful chemical, a lot of these food dyes are harmful chemicals. For that, I can actually get behind that. I can say, all right, if it might make some of our stuff a little bit more expensive, but if it's to make us healthier like he wants us to do, then that's fine. I can get behind the food dyes. Autism registry, I'm sorry, I can't get behind that.
So I have a couple thoughts on this. I think that it is a violation of medical security and medical protocols to create a registry of people with a certain disability. In that speech where he talked about the autism registry and food dyes, he also said sugar is poison, which I don't believe to be true. It is not good for you to have too much sugar, but it is not a poison, and I think as the head of HHS, it's a little dangerous to say something like that. And he also suggested the idea of wellness farms, where people who are addicted to certain substances that are currently illegal and also currently not illegal, such as ADHD medications and other kind of medications that he believes are addictive and harmful. He would like to send them to wellness farms where they would be forcefully sent and forced to go stone cold sober and would be supposedly rehabilitated into functioning members of society. I think as a baseline, I don't think he believes that people with disabilities are functioning members of society, and I don't think that's true. I think there are a lot of people who with autism, with ADHD, with all sorts of other mental and physical disabilities who are perfectly able to function in our society as anyone else does. And I think to try to send them to wellness farms or to remove those things that they use to better able themselves, I think it's wrong, and I think it's a violation of their medical rights.
Well, I think that first going to the issue of food coloring, I think we can all kind of agree across the aisle that that is a very good thing. I think that artificial dyes and things like that, which are going to be banned, are extremely dangerous to human health, especially in large doses. There are tons of studies on this, and that's why so many other countries have banned them. And I think when you're referencing to the thing where you said that sugar was poison, I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty positive that when he was talking about that, he was talking about artificial sugars. And I know that because I've heard a lot of what he said about that in the past. And I would say I agree with that. I think a lot of people agree with the idea that artificial sugars and the amount that they are put into processed foods in the U.S. are a danger. And, I think that any, whatever legislation he tries to put forward in the future, following the idea with food dyes that we should be prohibiting or limiting the use of artificial sweeteners. I think that obviously people have the freedom to eat what they want, but I think that there are some things that are very inhibiting to human health, and I think that there are certain things that should be regulated. There are a lot of countries that already regulate artificial sugars and sweeteners, and I think that we should be following their footsteps and trying to pursue a healthier America. But going into the issue of the registry for autism and wellness farms, I think that what the main issue that that RFK and his department are trying to push for right now is the belief that certain elements of what Americans are consuming or the environment that a lot of Americans are in is causing an increase in developmental disorders such as autism. And whether or not that's true still definitely needs to be studied. I think that there is a lot of evidence for it as far as what a lot of people have pushed and what people have seen. And I think definitely before any decision is made, that should be studied. But if it's found that that is true, I don't think that it would be bad to try to systematically avoid that number getting larger, that increment getting higher.
I think the issue is that has not been proven. And yet he's proposing the idea anyway. That has not been proven. It is far from it. It has been shown frequently that autism, ADHD, things like that, they are genetically inherited developmental disabilities. They are not caused necessarily. We have no proof. We have no
the thing is that
evidence
if
that it's
it was
caused by
on
food dyes
purely
and
genetic,
vaccines.
we would have seen it increase linearly as the population grows in the U.S. But in the past decades, it has increased
think we have.
exponentially from what I've seen.
I don't think that's true, Jay. I think you have to keep in mind the way that mental health and the developmental disorders have been treated throughout the United States history. I mean, anyone who had any inkling of any developmental disorders or mental health disorders, these people were strapped into straitjackets and thrown in mental hospitals. There used to be a mental hospital in Philadelphia called Byberry Mental Hospital, Philadelphia. That hospital, the images that I've seen from that hospital before they tore it down, before it was closed and they tore it down, of young children chained to radiators because they were committed due to having autism. As someone who has family members that have autism, I mean, these people, to say that they are not functioning members of society, it's disgusting and it's heartbreaking because they're no different from you and I. And I guess I don't think that RFK realizes that there's a reason it's called autism spectrum disorder. Someone can have autism that you don't even know. They could be sitting next to you. They don't show obvious signs of it. Conversely, someone else could show more developed autism or have more obvious signs. But it is a spectrum, and to try to just group everyone together and also I think the bigger question that we have all been avoiding: why do we need this? What is the need? Are they going to have a national cancer registry next? Are you going to have a national registry for people that are alcoholics next? Are you going to have a national registry for drug addicts next? It starts a process and a cycle that is going to keep leading and leading and leading, and we're going to have to wonder, where does it end?
I saw something earlier today that suggested that possibly a reason why RFK wishes to implement this autism registry is so that once it's implemented, people stop going to get their kids or themselves diagnosed because they don't want to be on that registry. And then the reported rates of autism would go down. And this would coincide with RFK's policies on vaccines and food dyes, and thus he could claim that we have conquered autism and that autism is down. I don't know if that's his goal, but I think that is a fairly accurate prediction of what it could be.
Well, I think a more practical assumption of what it could be would be that tracking again, with what I said before, the idea that the number has increased exponentially in the last couple of decades would coincide with the idea that RFK believes we need to track the number of people who have autism or are diagnosed with autism under the presumption that it is increasing not linearly like a genetic condition would, but giving evidence to the idea that there could be underlying factors that are contributing to an increase in developmental disorders in the United States. And I think if we're connecting that to
We do have to wrap, unfortunately,
Understandable.
on this issue. So you can finish off your
Yeah.
thoughts when we go to our final thoughts. So, Des, would you like to go first?
Yes, I think that what we've talked about today just goes to show that it's not doing, the Trump administration is not having a very good first 3 months. I mean, you have mishap after mishap. You have cabinet secretaries who are proposing preposterous ideas and getting involved in scandal after scandal. And it all goes to my main topic that I've been saying in previous episodes and this episode about qualifications. They wanted to get rid of the DEI and everything such as that. And yet the people that are being picked for these jobs are also not qualified for these jobs. And as a result, we have all these kerfuffles that keep arising.
Thank you, Des. Now, Gio, sorry for cutting you off. Summarize your whole thought in about 45
I
seconds.
think that what we're seeing right now is a transition of administrations. Obviously, not everything will always be peaceful. You definitely have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, especially in the case of such massive administrations and issues that we face today. I think that, again, what I was going to say before was that conflating wellness farms, I think an idea that's much more about rehabilitation of people like you mentioned who are addicted to certain medications or to certain drugs, is a very good thing if it's administered properly. And I think that, like you guys are saying, it has only been the first 3 months. We definitely need to see how these things are administered, because right now we're debating ideas, not actual policies that have been implemented yet. And I think that I'm very excited to see that these things hopefully go well.
I think I'll go to mine now. I think I have some form of excitement. There is a level of anxiety, I would put it, with these coming policies. I'm not excited in the typical way. I am anxious to see where this goes because, yeah, as you said, some of these policies, if they're implemented correctly, they'll be fine. But the issue is the way that this administration has repeatedly implemented its policy has been disastrous. The tariffs in moderation applied correctly aren't always bad, but they haven't been. They were placed across the board with a incorrect formula. And I think if all of these policies are implemented in the same way that the tariffs have been, where we put it out and then everything goes crazy and then we have to, okay, never mind. I think that's a problem. So I hope that this administration can apply these things correctly, but I don't think it will. And unfortunately, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you all for coming on. Thank you all for tuning in. And for being with us. And as I always try to say, keep having these discussions, and we will see you